If Kari Lake doesn't win Arizona.
We are now on air. Time for a total takeover.
It's finally here. Welcome to a new episode.
It's about to go down.
Good morning, God bless you and yours. Is yours truly, Dan Adams, a.k.a. the social conservative, the DA, and the prosecutor, coming to you live and direct from the Political Heat Remote Studios, a.k.a. the Dodge Journey, heading into the 9 to 5. It's short, sweet, and to the point. And I'm going to get to some clips for you today. That's how you know how I get down. But as the title states, if Kari Lake doesn't win Arizona, if somehow, some way, she doesn't win Arizona, okay, from a candidate who didn't want to debate, from a candidate who ran away from black reporters into the bathroom, from a candidate who didn't campaign the last 2 weeks leading up to the election, a candidate who was former Secretary of State at the time of COVID when all of this idiotic, nonsensical election voting, I'm going to come out and say it, cheating apparatus was put in place with this idiotic, you don't have to show identification with a mail-in ballot harvesting, freaking, I don't understand how, in my mind, it's just completely and utterly just befuddled as to why is when you have early mail-in ballots that they're not counted when those ballots are received. So let's go ahead and wait until election day and the days after to count mail-in ballots that were already received way before election day. Someone explain that one to me. But back to Kari Lake in Arizona. I just heard a clip on the radio. I guess she was on Tucker Carlson. She said by the I guess early in the night she was 15 points down, which is unreal. But then at the end of the night, she was only down 0.2 points. And she said that there's 650 votes unaccounted for, which is more than likely the day of votes, which, in my eyes, everyone should be, unless you have a medical condition or you're not in the state that you're voting in, for whatever reason, you need to show up on actual election day. But that's here nor there. 650,000 votes are unaccounted for, and she believes that most of those votes are Republican votes, and we are all hoping and praying that she is correct. So that's my little take on Arizona, and it never should even gotten to this point, but I stated the particulars that would lead to a running away from black reporters, non-debating, non-campaigning candidate from the left, even having a chance to win Arizona. Until next time, God bless. Peace.
What's the meaning if Lauren Boebert, the second most popular QAnon congressperson in MAGA, what if she loses? And what job will she have? Because I don't even think shooters exist anymore. Pew, pew, I don't think shooters exist anymore.
Well, I guess it might be a gain for OnlyFans. I don't know what she would do in this scenario.
Hold up. Wait a minute.
And what job will she have? Because I don't even think shooters exist anymore. Pew, pew, I don't think shooters exist anymore.
Well, I guess it might be a gain for OnlyFans. I don't know what she would do in this scenario, but I think that for symbolically to take out one of the poster childs of the MAGA movement, someone who has been an absolute disgrace to the office that she holds, would be a great feather in the cap and would, I think, cement the fact that this has been an absolute unmitigated disaster for the MAGA wing of the Republican Party. And that's really, again, we spent now for a couple of weeks, Joy, we've been up here talking about how all the pundits, all the polls, all the conventional wisdom, all the Beltway mentality was completely wrong and that they were full of it. And that's really what is borne out. And there needs to be a reckoning going forward in those specific places about how we talk about elections, because I am sick and tired of leading up to elections and hearing how we're at a disadvantage, how we don't have a chance, how we don't have a prayer. We have to be more responsible about that. We have to be better than this, because in 2024, I don't want to get to 6 weeks before an election and hear how Democrats don't have a prayer, how everything's underwater. How we keep repeating that same cycle. And this just shows that none of those people know what they're talking about.
I ain't scared of you, mother.
But that's still not as bad as this woman who blames the fact that she's obviously obese on white people.
The research says that black women, when we do the same diets as white women, we lose less weight and we lose it slower, even when we're following the diet, than our white women counterparts.
You are not following the diet. That I know for a fact.
And what public health practitioners think is that our stress responses in the body change our metabolism. It's literally that the racism that you're experiencing and the struggle to make ends meet actually means the diet don't work for you the same.
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
And it feels like Republicans have turned trans and non-binary people into this thing to blame society's downfall on in some ways. And this narrative is not only dangerous to our mental health, but also our physical safety. And particularly trans women of color are being murdered at an alarming rate.
More than any other group of people.
Thank you. How can Democratic leaders be more effective in advocating for us trans people and our families and our lives and our opportunities?
I'm not being facetious when I say this, being seen with people like you. No, I mean it. I genuinely mean it.
Well, no one's cutting you off.
People fear what they don't know. They fear what they don't know.
He's reading prompter.
And when people realize, individuals realize, oh, this is what they're telling me to be frightened of? This is the problem? People change their minds.
Do you think states should have a right to ban gender-affirming health care?
I don't think any state or anybody should have the right to do that. As a moral question and as a legal question. I just think it's wrong.
What was the biggest surprise for you last night?
Oh, there were a lot. The fact that Fetterman, someone like him, could win. We've gone through his record. We've gone through some of the issues that he's been dealing with personally. It was stunning to see. The outstanding Senate races, let's say we pick up 2 of the 3 that you mentioned. There's a very real likelihood it could all come down to Georgia. And what does that give you heebie-jeebies of? That gives you heebie-jeebies of last time around in 2020. And let me just say this. Every ounce of Republican energy, every last ounce needs to go into that Georgia race, because it could potentially be what makes or breaks the Senate. Getting Herschel Walker over the finish line. I know there's a temptation to start talking about 2024. No. 2022 is not over.
Great point.
Every Republican energy needs to go to grinding the Biden agenda to a halt. And that could go straight through the state of Georgia.
Great point. Does that include Trump?
I think he needs to put it on pause. Absolutely. Look, he'll make that decision. He'll make his own decision. But
does he go to Georgia?
If I'm advising any contender, DeSantis, Trump, whomever, no one announces 2024 until we get through December 6th.
Do you see the former president, a need for him to go to Georgia?
I think we've got to make strategic calculations. Governor DeSantis, I think he should be welcome to the state, given what happened last night. You got to look at the realities on the ground. And Herschel Walker, we've got to win the Senate. That's it, guys. Got to win the Senate.
And let's bring in to weigh in is journalist and host of the Megyn Kelly Show. Megyn Kelly, good friend of mine as well. Megyn, so this whole, was there a wave? Was there a tsunami? All I do know is there's going to be a lot of happy people that we're going to wake up one of these days, if it's not tomorrow, it's Friday or Monday, and say, guess what? Nancy Pelosi is no longer going to be the Speaker of the House come January 20th.
I mean, that's the thing, Eric. So it's like you can spend a lot of time licking your wounds about what might have been, but let's take a look at what appears to be. And that is the Biden presidency, for all intents and purposes, is done. His legislative agenda is over. The GOP is going to stop and stymie everything he tries to shove down their throats now in a way that they only dreamed of being able to do for the past 2 years. Think of all that he's done. Think of the Inflation Reduction Act and how Build Back Better kept coming back in one form or another. the crazy far left green agenda. The reason we're in this, as you know, inflationary spiral, for one of the main reasons is they're overspending. There was nobody there to stop it. And there was nobody there to really challenge it in any meaningful way. Maybe we'll finally find out how COVID started and prevent another pandemic if somebody actually looks into it like they'll do in the House. Maybe we'll find out what's happening along the southern border. Maybe we'll find out whether Joe and Hunter actually did commit some sort of fraud or other inappropriate dealings in their overseas excursions. I don't know, but I'd love to have answers, and a willing Congress is part of that equation. So that's all the good news as I see it. As soon as Republicans get done licking their wounds that they didn't get, the 10, I think they're going to start to feel pretty good about the fact that they got, the 4 or 5.
Yeah. And it's amazing that, you bring these things up like, hey, did Hunter and Joe have any sort of business dealings that could be construed as collusion or illegal? And you're labeled with misinformation. The reason why I bring that up is because, Megan, you've been having a back and forth a little bit with the New York Times because when you talked about the Paul Pelosi, whatever was going on out there, I mean, for God's sake, NBC reported that Paul Pelosi answered a door and they're citing San Francisco police. Paul Pelosi answers the door and says everything's fine. And then he gets hit and he's injured. And you pointed that out. And for some reason, the New York Times says, oh, Megan, you're misinformation.
Yeah, I spread misinformation in their view because I raised doubts that all facts were being disclosed by the SFPD. That's insane. The New York Times has lost its mind. It no longer recognizes what journalism is. We get paid to be skeptics. That's literally our business. It used to be cherished and revered, and the people who work for the New York Times used to do it. How the question is not why am I raising doubts? The question is why aren't they?
Right.
The police, by their own admission, were standing right there when this guy took out his hammer and attacked the 82-year-old Speaker of the House's husband. Why didn't they do anything? Why weren't they more alarmed? Did they know it was the Speaker of the House? Is it true that he actually walked toward the attacker and away from the cops, as the NBC News report suggested, but then that report expired without any explanation? I have questions, and most people do. That doesn't make me a purveyor of misinformation. How dare they lump me in with those conspiracy theorists who raise questions about the guy's sexuality? I did nothing of the kind. I resent the implication, and the Times has disgraced itself yet again.
Has NBC, though, Megan? I mean, they put this story out there. They pulled it back, citing not to our level of journalistic standards, and they pull a story back that, for all intent and purposes, asks the questions, opens up the door to the questions you want answered, not them closing the doors.
And guess what? They found very different answers than were in the police's original story. To me, it sounded like the cops are trying to make themselves look better, because I was not the only person saying they look like idiots. How did they show up at this house without their guns drawn after they got a distress call from the Speaker of the House and lollygagged around long enough to let the guy hit him in the head with a hammer right in front of the cops? Now they clearly leaked to Miguel Almaguer at NBC, hey, here's what really happened. He didn't say he was the husband of the Speaker. He opened the door himself. When we got there, he didn't rush into our arms. He turned and walked away toward the attacker. And by the way, they were in there for 22 minutes before we even got there, and we don't know what was going on. That's what Miguel's report said. Clearly, they got pressure to pull it. I would venture to guess it's from Pelosi's office. And somebody over there folded, because that report was not pulled for any discernible reason other than, oh, we had second guesses about our source. I worked at NBC. I know what those Today Show reports go through before they hit the air. They have to go through standards and practices and a bunch of lawyers who go through it line by line to make sure that you're okay. Guarantee you that happened before the Miguel piece hit. It wasn't until after, when something else happened, that suddenly they had second doubts and second guesses. And the real question, Eric, is where's the rest of the press? Yeah. Why isn't the rest of the press asking these questions? No one doubts the guy got attacked. The question is, what was wrong with SFPD in the moments before the attack that led them to be so lackadaisical?
The press is afraid to be accused of homophobic journalism by reporting something that, as you point out, no one's even commenting on what was going on. How about just tell us exactly why they were called and why it took so long for Paul Pelosi to say, hey, there's an intruder in here, and then he gets hit. Megan, from NBC to ABC, Sunny Hostin on The View. I think she may have gotten herself in a little trouble. Take a listen.
Who, by the way, wanted to make sure that his absentee ballot was that I did that, and I had trouble actually voting for him absentee ballot today, and that made me very concerned. It was the first time I was told to put it in an orange bag on the floor, and the orange bag looked to me like a Target bag or something. And I said, isn't there a formal election box that says absentee ballots or something like that? And then she said, let me check, and then found it.
Yep. I had trouble actually voting for him. Those words are incriminating, are they not?
You know, I don't know what the rules are in terms of dropping off your absentee ballot or that of somebody else, someone other than you. I gather they vary state to state. But look, this woman is out there every day lecturing us on how to be a better person, how to follow her imaginary rules of what it means to be moral. And this is the same person who just days ago was on the air, on that show, publicly saying in front of cameras that the women who are getting ready to vote GOP in this midterm are roaches. They're like roaches who vote for Raid.
We have that. Let's take a listen, control room.
I read a poll just yesterday that white Republican suburban women are now going to vote Republican. Why? It's almost like roaches voting for Raid.
Okay.
You're,
so white women.
Yeah, you white suburban women voting for, if you did, you're a roach in her world.
Okay, imagine if that had been said about any other race. Imagine if I were out there on the set and I said, black women voting for Stacey Abrams are like cockroaches voting for Raid. Can you imagine? Why is it okay when she says it about white women who might be getting ready to vote GOP? And then she tried to defend herself because, by the way, none of her co-hosts seem to have a problem with it. Whoopi Goldberg, who's so mad that Elon took over Twitter, she's going to leave. Single tier, it's just gotten so ugly over there. She didn't have any problem with that. Go ahead, rip on the white women. As long as they're voting GOP, they're fair game to be called roaches. No problem whatsoever. So then the next week, the woman who pretends to be a Republican on that show called out Sunny for saying, you compared white women to roaches. No, I did not. I absolutely did. And my mother's white. Okay, it's like, oh, some of my best friends are white. Okay, so her mother's white. You know what? I bet she's not a white Republican because that's what she really hates. It's not so much the skin color, but the skin color coupled with the GOP label, that's what none of these women can stand. And they show it every single day. The fact that Disney has not forced that woman to apologize for that comparison is absolutely outrageous.
Outrageous indeed. In fact, only thing lower on the we're okay to trash them race and call them names than white suburban conservative women are white straight male conservatives. I'm like, I got all the boxes checked. We really rock their world. Megan, always good having you. Have a great day, and I'll see you again next time very soon.
Great to be with you.